Hey, it's me, Mikey. In this video, I'll be going over the basics of animation, as well as a few of the 12 principles that have helped me the most. I'm going to be using Adobe Animate for this tutorial, but any animation software should work. Okay, alright. Now, I'm going to copy and paste the same drawing because I'll explain the other principle later. Fuck. Okay, you know what? I'll just isolate. Okay, so here's the ball bounce that I've animated a little bit incorrectly to show you guys how to improve your animations. The first thing I want to point out is how the ball goes the same speed the entire time while it's moving. Realistically, if a ball were bouncing like that, it would speed up before it hit the ground, slow down really fast, and then shoot up, and then slow down at the top. You can fix this with one of the principles of animation called slow in, slow out, where you slow the ball down when it's going into a motion and out of a motion. In this case, since it's bouncing, it's hitting the ground pretty fast, so we don't do the slow out. Notice how the animation's already starting to look better, and we just changed the spacing of a few frames. That is how powerful slow in, slow out is. I use this at least once in every animation, if not many, many times. So the next thing I'm going to be going over is the principle of squash and stretch. So what squash and stretch is it's where you stretch out an object and squash it when there's any speed. So if something's like for example, if something's moving really fast, you'd stretch it out to where it's like vertically pretty thin but horizontally pretty wide. But if that same object's like stopped really fast, it would instead squash. And then like the opposite for vertical movement. If something was falling down really fast, you'd probably squash it, and like vertically like that. But then when it like hits the ground, you'd stretch it out horizontally. Squash and stretch can also be used to show material. So softer things they'd squash pretty well, but harder things wouldn't squash as much. So even though the animation is a little bit rough, you can still see how adding some squash and stretch can give your animation more weight and personality. Um, you might have seen me go in and correct the frames by shrinking them vertically and horizontally. And that's because you're gonna want to try and keep the volume of the circle the same size throughout the entire animation. Okay, so the next principle I'm going to be going over is exaggeration. And what exaggeration is is it's where you take a pose that a character is doing or a movement that's happening on screen and you exaggerate it a lot so people can tell what's happening really easy. The motion becomes like a lot more easy to read. It also plays into squash and stretch a little bit, as you'll see here. I have this ship which is moving flatten a ton and stretch out when it launches forward to show that it's going so fast that like it would stretch out the ship. And then you can also see it right here when he hits the brakes. You see his eyelids kind of lunge forward. He is pressed up against the thing, and the ship flattens. So, like I said, this is something that is used to make your animations easier to read and show that an action is happening. The next principle of animation I'm going to be going over is anticipation. Now, anticipation often uses exaggeration because they both help make an action more readable, and if you combine them together, it makes it like a lot easier to read and it makes your animations flow better. So, anticipation is what happens before an action to let the viewers know that an action is about to happen. And it makes your animations, again, just a lot easier to read. So, the example here is right before the ship blasts off really fast, it slows down and lets you visually know that it's about to jet off. And then right here, you can see before it sinks down into the house, the ship briefly rises up to let you know it's about to happen. The final principle I'm going to be going over is follow through. It's very similar to anticipation, but instead of before an action happens, it's what happens after the action's done. So you can see right here when the spaceship stops, how instead of just stopping right here, it continues forward and then kind of jolts back into place. This makes the stopping feel a lot better. Like it makes your action feel a lot better, especially like seeing an action wrapped up because if an action just stops suddenly, it just doesn't look realistic. Another example in this video is a head-on example where instead of just stopping and like just getting close and then backing up, I actually had the spaceship lean forward like it was stopping really quickly. This will make your animation more realistic, it'll make it easier to buy, and it also just makes it look better overall. Thank you for watching this tutorial. I hope you learned a lot from it, and I hope you enjoyed how I showcased the different principles. If you would like to learn more about principles of animation specifically, there's a really good series on YouTube by Alan Becker that covers all 12. If you would like to see more about animation in general, I will be making more videos. I'll release about two more, and I'm releasing them every 2 weeks for now. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.